Hi, friends. Welcome in. We are so excited to have you all here today. I'm just going to give everyone a minute or two before Yair and I dive into this exciting content that we have for you today. Today's webinar is on maximizing your end-of-year revenue. I'm sure this is on everyone's minds right now. Giving Tuesday is only 2 weeks away. And I don't know about you all, but 2023 to me feels like this year has blown by faster than anyone I've ever experienced. And then we're going to blink and it's going to be Christmas. So here we are. Hopefully most of you have most of your end of year plans kind of in order, but Yair and I are going to talk a little bit more about how you can harness the power of asking your donors for crypto stock and DAF donations. And he's going to talk a little bit more about grant opportunities. Just a few housekeeping items. We're going to be recording this. This will go out to you all in the next couple days. Please feel free to drop any questions into the chat. You can drop those in as we go, or in the Q&A. We'll try to hit as many of those as we can towards the end of the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing screen. We're going to get started, and just give me 1 second to share, and we're just going to dive right in. All right, here we go. All right, I'm just going to do a little brief overview on the giving block and myself, and then I'm going to pass it over to Yair. Brief interview of myself. My name is Carly Evans. I am the Senior Nonprofits Partnerships Manager here over at the Giving Block. I've been here just shy of about 2 years. I do come from a background in fundraising. I have done everything from events, major gifts. I've run an annual fund before coming over to the Giving Block. And we are a non-cash asset fundraising platform. We are the pioneers of crypto philanthropy. And we really decided, let's expand a little bit more beyond crypto. So last year we added automated stock donations and DAF. And with that, what really makes us unique, in addition to equipping nonprofits to accept those assets, is we provide fundraising education, strategic guidance, and technical support on really how to maximize your fundraising outcomes. And on the donor side, our unique crypto stock and DAF giving platform connects those donors with thousands of vetted nonprofit organizations, hopefully like all of yourselves, to these assets within just a few clicks. Now I'm going to pass it over to Yair to introduce himself and talk a little bit about what Escalon does.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for joining. My name is Yair Segev. I'm the head of the nonprofit vertical at Escalon. I joined Escalon about 10 years ago. And what Escalon is doing is basically covering all the essential business services of nonprofit organizations to increase efficiency, reduce cost, improve technology, managing risk, and cash management, obviously, and also covering the part of the HR and payroll to maintain talent. As we know, it's one of the top pain points at nonprofits to maintain talent for long term. Thank you for joining again.
All right, let's briefly go over our agenda for today. So first, we're going to get into fundraising with non-cash assets. Then we're going to go a little bit more into crypto stock and DAFs. Yair is going to go in more detail and talking about grant opportunities and all the good stuff that they do over at Escalon. And then we're going to have some key takeaways. But first, I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll here. And I would love to hear from you all and find out what is the biggest priority with your fundraising team right now. We've got a few different options here. We've got new donor acquisition. Do you want to increase your gift size? Is diversifying revenue something that's important to you? Maybe social media, attracting younger donors, or maybe something else. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share this. It looks like most of you are your biggest priority is the new donor acquisition, followed by diversifying revenue and increasing gift size. And those are all really important things to be doing. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So let's talk a little bit more about the state of philanthropy. So, giving has been down. It's been a tough year for people. Inflation's high, donors are down. Giving USA reported that it's actually down 10.5%. However, what we've been hearing and what we've been seeing is that major donors are sticking around and they're actually giving larger gifts. So this is a good thing, but we know like you're all struggling out there, and that's why new donor acquisition is so important, as well as diversifying that revenue and getting in those big gifts. So I think as we talk today, like you're going to find different ways of specifically new donor acquisition. And then also with grants, Sayir is going to touch on how to diversify. And then also you'll see the opportunity with these non-cash gifts, truly how to increase your average gift size. So there's something in here that all of you are going to be able to take away. So the importance of diversifying your fundraising is huge. Just donor advised funds alone is a really great area for you all to tap into. So there 80% of the money in DAFs right now goes ungranted each year. So it's 80% of that. So think about how much money is ready to be deployed in donor advised funds. So these are people that have already taken that tax benefit from it, and it's just in one of their accounts. Like it's creating interest and it's ready to be deployed. I mean, each donor kind of has their own thought process of, if they want to use it now or if they want to use it over their lifetime. But this is something where you really need to learn and talk to your donors of how they're holding these assets and where they want to give. Another important reason to do this is to future-proof, specifically for major and planned giving. So again, the money is already on the sidelines and it's ready to go. But especially when you have those conversations about legacy giving and bequests, it's a really good opportunity to find out, are you holding it in stock? Do you have a DAF? And then again, you must ask. So younger donors don't typically work with a wealth advisor, which means they're not necessarily super tax savvy. So you have to be sharing with these donors what the tax benefits are of donating these assets. So like I just said with DAFs, they already got that tax benefit. But for stock and gifts of crypto, they're handled just exactly the same in terms of offsetting those capital gains. So it's important that you might think that your donors know that's the case, but I wouldn't assume that everyone is super knowledgeable, especially your donors that are that Gen Z and millennial. All right, we'll go ahead and launch one more poll here. And I just want to see what assets that you already accept. Are you accepting crypto, stock, and DAFs? Are you accepting stock and crypto? Neither. I would say most organizations that I've talked to prior are that come to the giving block, they haven't been accepting crypto, but they want to. But most people do accept stock donations. And I'm excited to see here that most of you are accepting both stock and crypto. Okay. And then a few just stock and some just crypto. Fantastic. I'll go ahead and share the results here. Okay. So let's dig a little bit more into the opportunity. And first, I'm going to touch on crypto. There's some really interesting statistics that, we'll really dive into, but if you really look at this chart here, it's going to show you how far up everything is year to date. So this is, again, the importance of having conversations with your donors about, making those major gifts at the end of the year, because I think a lot of us are kind of in this mindset of, oh, the market's been, down this year and last year was a bad year, and that's what's attributing giving to being down. But if you look at this, so this is taken from the market close of yesterday. Bitcoin is up 120% year to date. That is huge. S&P 500 is up about 15% this year. Bitcoin alone is up 36%, I'm sorry, in 1 month. Ethereum is up 32% in 1 month. I mean, these are huge percentages that they're up. So taking a look at this and just, I want you to think about this and just remind yourself when you're having conversations with donors, like people still have made money this year. So when you're thinking about, if you're still working on that end of your ask or trying to figure out, like, don't be shy. People have still made money, and this is hopefully going to continue. We get that Santa Claus rally at the end of the year. Like, it's still a good opportunity for your donors to give that non-cash gift, or maybe you've identified this donor of someone that has capacity and you want to look to increase their gift size. This might be a good conversation to start thinking about to have with them, because as you can see here, like, things are probably a lot better than you all think in the market. So with crypto specifically, it's a very interesting user base. 94% of crypto users are millennials and Gen Z. So it's cool to see that a couple of you out there have just accept crypto, but stock is important as well, and DAFs and all these other assets, because people really differentiate their portfolio. But just with crypto users specifically, the average crypto investor is 38 years old. So this is your older millennial. 83% of millennial millionaires invest in crypto. The average income of a crypto user is $111,000. So that is much higher than the national average. The average donation size of a crypto gift is $10,500. And they are very generous. So 45% are more likely to donate $1,000 or more. They are also very financially literate individuals. They are tech savvy. They're also pretty engaged in social media. And a lot of nonprofits might say, my donor base is aging out. I'm looking to get younger. This is a really good opportunity for you to engage younger individuals that probably have crypto that they're looking to give. And this is, just something where if you get a donor now and you continue to steward them, they might be able to stay with you for their lifetime, which is wonderful. So essentially, these donors are generous, they're young, and they're wealthy. So sounds like a perfect donor to me. So people also really want to donate this. And these are some Google trends that we've been tracking over the last few years. As you can see here, from 2020 to 2022, donate stocks was a little bit more popular in Google search. And as you can see, within 2020, 21 to 22, donate Bitcoin equaled out to donate stocks, which is really fascinating. And so that's why we want you all to be able to accept crypto or Bitcoin or whatever asset that the donor wants to give that is cryptocurrency, because these analytics are really powerful. And what this shows you is that these donors are looking for places to give. We'll touch a little bit here on DAFs. So donor advised funds is something that you all might have been hearing about. I feel like it's kind of been along with AI, you have probably heard a lot about donor advised funds. I was just at the DAF Giving Summit about a month ago, and it's really, really interesting to see how much interest has grown in the space. So I'll just go over this real quick. If for some reason there's someone in this webinar that doesn't know much about donor advised funds, so a donor advised fund allows donors to establish and fund an account by making an irrevocable tax deductible contribution to a charitable provider, and it is self-directed. These have exponentially grown in recent years. This chart that I put in here is from the National Philanthropic Trust recent annual report. And these are some really huge numbers. So contributions to DAFs in 2021 totaled 72.67 billion. This is the highest ever. So the number surpasses the revised 2020 value that they estimated of 49.58 billion. So you can see that this is a 46.6% increase year over year. So a lot of money is locked up into those DAF accounts, but the grant payouts have been increasing, which has been amazing because, you know, it's better, in my opinion, to make more impact now because it's needed now more than ever, especially when giving is down. But that's really what we want. We want to put the money to use. 2021's payout rate was 27.3%. And that was definitely the highest grant payout record to date. So as you can see, like there's going to be more money that's being funded into these accounts, and hopefully more is going to be granted out to help nonprofits like you all. These grants to charitable organizations reached a new high of 45.74 billion. And all of these charitable assets in DAFs totaled 234.06 billion and 21. So this is just to show you, again, constant charitable support can be provided by donor advised funds. So let's talk a little bit about stock donations. So 46 trillion is the total value of the US stock market. And I don't know why this says 2022. This should say 2023. So over 100 billion in public stock was donated to charities last year. So if you're not accepting stock donations, hopefully these numbers show you that, number one, there is a lot of money out there that can be granted to you, and anything over 100 billion is pretty, you know, that'd be pretty motivating to me to say, hey, I want to be a part of that. So for those of you nonprofits that aren't accepting stock yet, you definitely should be. I don't want you to miss out on this big opportunity. So let's kind of break this down a little bit more by what assets donors have to give for crypto and stock specifically. Just look at the market sizes. Crypto 1 trillion, stocks 46 trillion. Crypto's been around for about 10 years. Stocks has been around for a lot longer. US users, 60 million in crypto compared to 145 million in stock. So that's just in the US. And if you think about how quickly the amount of crypto users scaled in the last 10 years versus stock, you know, something that you want to think about. The amount donated in crypto in 22 was 69 million, in stocks 100 billion. So there's a lot more room for that to grow. And average gift size 6.5, and in stocks it's about 5 to 10K. So essentially what this is going to show you here is that if you're not actively fundraising these non-cash assets, you're really going to be missing out like on a lot of money. And if you're looking to increase your revenue, this is definitely one of the ways to do it. I think this is interesting to look at by generation, how they give. Baby boomers, they've always gotten to stocks. And these are for your major gifts, of course. So they're used to giving gifts of stock. Gen X stock. Millennials, we do see a mix of stock and crypto, but it's primarily crypto. And Gen Z is a mix of stock and crypto as well. Again, I would say that most millennials and Gen Zs are going to probably sway a little bit more toward crypto, but they also have a stock portfolio as well. And then cash versus non-cash. So your average non-cash donation is exponentially higher. The average cash gift is $128. So if you're accepting crypto and stock, those gifts are going to be in the thousands instead of in the hundreds. So just kind of putting those numbers, comparing them next to each other to really truly see the importance of accepting them. The tax efficiency. So I did mention that earlier, if you had give a gift from, you direct it from your DAF, the donor has already received that tax benefit. But for crypto and stock, the donor is going to be receiving that write-off and are exempt from the capital gains tax. With cash, you're not. And especially in this particular environment that we're in right now with inflation, a lot of people want to keep their cash on hand. And with the markets going up, and especially if they've been in for a while, they have a lot of growth within those assets. So this is the time to really, in my opinion, lean into asking for those major gifts, which are going to be coming in. You know, sometimes it's cash and stock. Sometimes it's a mix, like it's a blended gift. But I think that you have the opportunity to ask for more when you're getting these non-cash gifts, because they don't have to pay that capital gains tax. So this will truly show you how much more that your gift can be if the donor gives you that asset directly, instead of selling off and then paying those capital gains taxes. Like $276,000 is going to go up to Uncle Sam instead of going directly to your nonprofit for $1 million gift. I mean, that is a lot of money that you're missing out on. So again, just keep all this in mind as you sort of formulate your strategy and talk to your donors about the way that they want to give, but then also getting everything set up on your site. So, you know, you might not even have to go deep into the conversation, but say they just kind of want to quietly give their gift, and you already have all the options available for them to give, and you're truly, you know, having that donor-centric approach of meeting the donors where they are and letting them give to your organization the way that they want to. So here's a few of the organizations that we work with. So who fundraises these non-cash assets? We work with over 2,000 nonprofits. So I would say, you know, of course we work with, you know, your St. Jude, United Way Worldwide, American Cancer, a lot of our big blue chips we work with, but I would say a bulk of the organizations that we work with are like the smaller to mid-size, you know, from your local church, a regional food bank, religious organizations, hospital foundations, universities, you name it. So a lot of people might think that actively fundraising, you know, perhaps say crypto might be something that's niche, but it is absolutely not. As you can see here, a lot of people are just, again, allowing those donors to give the assets that they want to. So where is non-cash asset fundraising going? Well, there's a big emphasis on tax education. And at the Giving Block, we want to enable you to have that conversation with the donors. We want you to share that information on your website. We actually have a tax calculator, which is really awesome. So your donors can actually see the difference of giving a cash and a non-cash gift. I think that's huge. And the other thing that's super important is the great wealth transfer. So this is the most important thing I think that you all need to be talking about internally for your strategy is, you know, we have on here 68 trillion, you know, sometimes I hear like 80 trillion. It really kind of depends. It's anywhere between 68 to 80 plus trillion dollars is going to be going into the hands of Gen Z, Millennial, and Gen X. A part of that is designated when it comes down, like we expect a portion of that to go directly to charity before it moves hands. So this is just something for you all to keep in mind, because this has already started happening and it's going to accelerate a lot in the near future. So since we have just discussed what assets that the generations want to give, you just want to be able to be ready to accept that. So I'm going to pass it over to Yair to talk a little bit more about grant opportunities, and we covered non-cash, and he's going to go into grants.
Thank you so much. On grant opportunities, grant is basically, it's like a cash, getting cash, but has a string attached, and the string can be either the purpose or how you use the money. And the heaviest part on which I'll talk later, is the reporting to the grantor, and this requires some preparation. So, sorry. There's thousands of grants available for non-profit organization. On the grants today, I'll touch only on the non-profit, because there are some grants that are given for other purposes, like one that I was involved years ago was by the Department of Defense, I think, a challenge of the autonomous car. Yeah, at that time we barely knew how to spell it. Now it's everybody's lingo, like AI. So grants are available from various sources. It can come from government agencies, federal, state, local. It can be cities. It can be special government agency to deal with foster houses or anything like this. Foundations, it's the Bill and Melinda Gates, the Ford Foundation, the Lilly Endowment, which are considered by some people the top three, but there are many more that gives grants, donations, and any sort of transferring money from that foundations to nonprofits. There's also corporations, like the Google, Amazon, and Walmart, and more, that they give the money either as money or as services. Like Google gives you up to 10,000 on AdWords. I'll touch upon it later on, because it's not as simple as it sounds. So grants are also available to support various causes, and it can be education, social services, religious research, whatever you can think of a cause of a nonprofit, there is a grant available for it. Not, I mean, you'll see later that health and education is one of the biggest things that the government is supporting. Watch out, each grant has their own rules and reporting requirements. Like the grant that comes from the federal government, they require you to spend the money once you get it. You're not supposed to like make interest on it or invest the money in any tool. On average, those entities that are using grants or applying for grants, it covers about on average 20% of their total budget, which is significant. Then, yeah, that's on this part. So this is a snapshot of 2022 from the US spending.gov. You can see that the biggest giver of grants is the Department of Health, about 26 billion out of the over 80 billion that were given in 22. There's also the Department of Energy, about 14 billion. I think I said million on the 26. No, it's all billions. And you can see that the health department gives 26. Next one is the energy, about half, a little bit over half. Then not too far behind is Department of the DoD, Department of Defense, and then international development 6.8 billion, and the National Aeronautics and Space Admin 4.3. So you see that the top three that covers more than 50% of the total giving is the Health Department, Department of Energy, and DoD, Department of Defense. In the next slide, you'll see the trend in the last 6 years. obviously, and not surprising, 2020, there's a peak, and most of us still remember the pandemic. Some wants to forget it, but it was here. What you can see here is that in 22, between 22 and 21 and 22, there's a increase in the grants number, but about 66,000 were given, 66,000 grants were given in 2022. But the average seemed like the average is down from 21 to 22. More grants, a little bit less money. So it's which sometimes it can be an advantage, and I'll explain later, sometimes a disadvantage if the grant is smaller or larger. And one point, it's the statistics there is just the federal agencies. Then on top of the government agencies, there's the foundations. And in 22, grants from foundations were around 100 billion. And there's almost 300,000 private foundations that are giving non-profits, giving to non-profits, and almost 80,000 of them are grant making. Some of them are just giving the money as a donation, and as I mentioned previously, the biggest difference between the grant and the donation is that grant may have a string attached on reporting on the use. Yes, there are dedicated donations that come from endowments, either as a grant or donation. Then the grants can be as minimum as several thousands for small purposes, and can be over 10 million for capital grants and like anything that is bio research or health related, which require a lot of money, and usually those research takes several years, and several can be 5, 10, 15 years, as we know, even if when you want to develop a new medicine or something, it requires lots of research. Then there is, some say many, some say but some of the grants are competitive grants. I'll touch upon it later, but this means that there is a pool of money that is ready to support a cause, and it's not dedicated to one nonprofit. It can be used by several nonprofits. So either the money is shared between all the entities that applied, or it's granted to one entity, and then you just need to compete and show that you are the chosen one. Then good to know when you are going to thinking of applying for a grant. It takes time to prepare a grant, and to prepare a government-related grant, it takes about 5 times more than it takes to private grant. It's most of the grants are prepared, the bigger ones are prepared by people that are working within the organization, but with support of outside consultants or grant writers. That's what they do. grant writing for nonprofits. Remember, if it's a competitive grant, you really want to use a professional person who did it and won it and can convince the grantor that you're the one that needs to get the money. It's not an overnight thing that you send the grant and next week you get the money into the bank. I wish it was like this, but it takes between a month to 6 months to get the money if you are granted the the money. Some of the grantors may require detailed reporting of use of funds and when you use them. Make sure that the organization systems are ready to support it. I've seen from personal experience with companies we're working with that they weren't aware of the reporting requirements, or they didn't pay attention to the requirements, and suddenly at the year end or the period end when they need to report, it's a whole madness. Everybody's trying to gather information and make sure that they satisfy the grantor, because some grantor will not leave you or let you go before you fulfill all their reporting requirements, because sometimes they need to report to some other entities to show that the money was used for the purpose that it was given. And the sad thing is that not all grants application ends with funds in the bank, because especially with the competitive and not just with the competitive, you do not qualify. Although you think you're qualified and you made best efforts to show that you qualify, but somebody qualified more than you. Unfortunate, but it doesn't mean that you should not apply for the grants. Then make sure that the grant purpose fits your organization to increase your chances of winning the grant. The purposes can be, I mean, and you pretty much know what the purpose of the grants before you apply. It can be special project or purpose like I'm not talking about infrastructure, that's a different thing, but like technology, like improving or let's say there's a disaster somewhere in the world, and unfortunately we have them very frequent. So it can be a grant to support this disaster area, and they need someone to manage it. There's also grants that are direct spend, which means you need to the money is granted for a purpose that you require money to build a new foster house, a new not to build the house, but like to rent and make it available. So these ones are grants that will require definitely a detailed reporting of what you did with the money. Infrastructure such as building or leasehold improvements, these are again special purpose, and you need to report on it. Usually the general, when it's a general fund, then it's you use the money at your discretion, and it's I would say a little bit less of reporting, because in any case it was given to you for general purposes. Also, always consider if the purpose worth the efforts, because if you need $1 million and this grant is for 1,000, and you need to spend I don't know, several weeks to prepare it, think if really worth the efforts. I'm not saying give up, but rethink. Then there are different grants can be given in different ways. It can be continuous grants, which means it's annual or periodic, and it can be renewed, subject to fulfilling the requirements that the grantor gave. Usually when you get a grant, it's like a contract, and it's very clear what the requirements. You can ignore them, but eventually you'll have to fulfill them. There's also these pass-through grants that are giving from the federal government to local agencies, and the nonprofit gets it from the local agencies. So you basically need to obey to the grant rules that were set by the federal government. Then there's a dedicated grants, which are, let's say, if this organization does XYZ, then they are eligible for this grant. You need to apply for it, and as long as you comply with the qualify with the requirements, you'll get it. And then back to the competitive grants. Again, you need to apply and convince that you're the one that deserve the money. One of the examples that we're working with, several of the companies we're working with, is the New York City. They give money for health and human service, arts and education, and other. There's also recently they institute a city council discretionary funding, where you need to apply, and it's the city council discretionary funding that they will decide which one is getting the money, and if this purpose is in line with the city goals and plans. They recently improved their website, and it's one of it's not easy, but it's easier than others. Obviously, this is just one example, and there are many more across the nation, cities and organizations that gives these grants. Then grant writing. When you're applying for a grant, make sure that your marketing collateral is organized, the mission statement is clear, and is expressed clearly in the grant application. Make sure that you disclose your key donors and employees. Sometimes they ask for the boards of trustees, boards of directors to be mentioned, because the grantor wants to know that they're dealing with the right people. make sure that your project is described clearly. What's the budget, when you're going to spend it, and a detailed budget. The more detailed you give, the bigger, the larger your chances to win this grant. Then also the organizational documents like company budget, annual report, and if you can afford it, do the audited financials. I'm saying afford it. Some states have different requirements for when you require to file either reviewed financials or audited financials. So even if you're applying for a large grant, consider having audited financials, even if you're not required by the state. And the last part is the grant reporting. So make sure that on day one, you know what you need to do in order to comply with the grantor requirements. Make sure that the accounting system is set, the allocations are correct. Don't wait for the last minute. It's a nightmare to do it in the last minute. I've been there. We're involved with last minute reporting. Sometime you can't find the documents, or there was an expense. Nobody can recall what is it. Make sure you do it on a regular basis. It's very, very important. You save yourself a lot of time if finance and operation and the development team works together to set the grant in the right way. And I think by this, that's all what I had to say today. Back to you.
Thank you so much. That was super helpful. I know that grants are a tedious thing, but they're a necessary evil and just extremely important for all of the nonprofits out there. All right, so let's just go into a few key takeaways. We want to make non-cash asset fundraising for your team. So, it's really great to consolidate these into like one platform. That's what we do over at the Giving Block. If any of you want to talk about more, there's going to be an opportunity for you to let us know at the end. But truly, we just want to make it easy. Again, like if a donor wants to give you crypto, we want you to be able to accept that gift seamlessly and not try to figure out how to do that on your own, because it's going to be confusing and it's going to take a long time, and we can do everything super turnkey, especially making those stock gifts too. It's just so nice. And DAF gifts, just being able to log in and do those things with just a few clicks. So ease of donation is just so important. And then that goes into the donor needs. So again, meeting the donors where they are, and allowing them to give to you in the way that they want to. And then we also go ahead and automate the receipts for you. So donors are getting that right at the time of donation, alleviating that issue for you all to deal with, which I know I used to have to deal with it, and Giving Block makes it so easy. And then the last point I'll say here is active fundraising is always going to be so much more important than passive acceptance. You can have all the different options for the donor to give on your website, but you have to share that with your constituency. You have to put it in your newsletter. You have to, be active on social media. You have to do all the things to engage with your donors to truly, get the most out of this. So I think that's probably most things in fundraising, but in particular, I would say, crypto as well. So you got to be always asking, you got to be out there. And the more organizations that we see that are super active truly do the best. And then I'm just gonna pop up a quick poll here and see if anyone wants to learn more, either from the giving block, or if you want to hear a little bit more about grants from Escalon or some of the other things that Yair mentioned. We'll go ahead and pop this in here and see who wants to chat with us. It is such a great time to have the conversation because number one, we can get you set up before the end of the year. So you're not, scrambling to try to get this all set up and take advantage of those big gifts that, people want to make right at the, tail end of the year. We can get you all set up. All right. I'll just give this another second or two here while I look at some questions. Will I be receiving a recording of this webinar? Yes, you will. So that'll go out within the next day or so. And then I'll also send you all out the presentation as well. And then one more thing in the chat. Yep. Basically the same thing about the recording. Yeah, well, thank you all so very much. I hope you found this really insightful. We'll get in touch with those of you that want to learn more about how we can help, and hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.